I've pushed the button. I pushed the button. Um,
The button is
so
pushed.
it has been. Obviously, you know as well as most of the people listening, I am half deaf, and I got a message from my editor the other day saying, "I hate that you're half deaf," and I had no context as to why. And I was like, right, okay, thanks for that. My editor is related to me, sister, so it's not too bad. But yeah, I found out why. So when I edit, some of you may have experienced sometimes the noise only comes through one headphone because I can't hear if it doesn't come through the right one because I can't hear out of my right ear. So I edited down my clip, my Blue Danny clip for the video that's coming out tomorrow, so it should be up on the channel by then. I edited it down, so loads of different cuts. And then my editor got it and tried to listen to it and got very confused as to why it was only coming out of one speaker. She thought her speaker was broken. It wasn't. It just didn't go through the right audio track, so she had to go through every single track and add it
Oh,
in.
oh no. Oh no.
So yeah, she hates me being half deaf.
Oh dear. Reminded me of yesterday actually. We played a wonderful game of I Spy, and I don't think people want to play I Spy with me anymore. Um,
Why?
because because I'm an ass.
Yeah, that's the
So
point of the
so
game,
the
isn't it?
resp- so when obviously the way you say it is I spy with my little eye. Now my
I
blind
spy with
eye,
my only eye.
yeah. So I do I spy with my little eye, and what can I see out of my little eye? Nothing. So I go
Ah.
something beginning with N, and it annoys people for quite a few. It was a good hour where everyone was like, "Is it this? Is it that? Is it this?" It's like, no, no. Can we see it? Well, I mean, yes, but also no. Um, and in the end, it's just like, oh, I give up. And I was just like, close your eyes. What can you see? Nothing. And then they all went, oh. I'm like, look, I have to take advantage of my disability here for once. I would
I
be terrible at playing.
I'm actually curious then because with my hearing or lack thereof, sometimes it does come as an advantage, and with my eyesight, I I have found it an advantage sometimes, and yeah, and I was curious because obviously you've been sounds so weird. We're comparing disabilities. You've been blind longer than I've been blind. Um,
Hmm.
so have you noticed any advantages?
I, I, I don't have a comparison, so I don't know whether I've had it. Hmm.
So because obviously I've always been half deaf and I see advantages me comparing myself to other individuals. Like sleeping as an example. I can sleep on my good ear and I can't hear out of my bad one. That's like an obvious one. If I'm in a room with someone snoring, I just sleep on my good ear and I'm fine. That to me is an
Yeah.
advantage.
Yeah.
Because I'm always looking for, yeah, this is the way I look at the world. I'm always looking for things that I can do, like solutions that I have, opportunities. I don't think of things that I can't do. I think of things that I can do. And when it comes to my hearing, I think of things that I can do that other people either can't or would struggle with.
I don't actually know. I have never thought about it like that.
Okay, interesting.
What would be an advantage to the I'm really intrigued now.
So when I'm in the pub, which previously I just didn't do because obviously hearing, I don't know what's going on in the conversations. I just avoided it. But over the last few months, because I've been engaged in the deaf community, I can go to the pub and I can actually like speak to people because everyone is deaf aware. So even if they don't know sign language, they look at me when they're talking to me, so I can lip read. And if they do know sign language, which obviously deaf culture, most people that I'm speaking to or signing to do, they'll sign, whether that's SSE, Sign Supported English, or BSL, British Sign Language. I can understand the conversation, so I'm going to the pubs more. And what I'm noticing is a lot of people are distracted by people walking around, spilling things, dropping things, flailing their arms, especially when it gets later and they're getting drunk. And I don't see any of that because it's on my blind side. So when I'm having a conversation with someone like straight across the table, and there's a couple sitting to the right. Obviously, I can't hear them anyway, but I also can't see them. So if someone is getting really agitated and flailing their arms around and they're shouting, like I can hear the shouting within all of the background noise, so everything just gets a little bit louder, but I can't isolate words anyway, so that doesn't bother me. And the flailing of arms, I can't see because it's just a blur. So while I'm signing, the person opposite me, I can see their eyes flicking to my blind side. And I'm like, what in the world is going? Oh, that's going on. Yeah. And then I just carry on. So I don't get distracted as easily as other people because I can't see things in pub situations and group situations, which I find interesting.
That is really fascinating. Yeah, I suppose that's the same. I find that greatly anxiety inducing, but I can see how it's also a benefit.
I mean, yeah, I think this is where it's like the cup's half full or cup's half empty. Like I'm
Yeah.
looking at what I can do, the opportunities there rather than the limitations. If I mean, yeah, of course, I'm missing people that are trying to sign to me, and when they try and sign to me, they have to
It's
like,
not even like it's not even the limitations. It's just like
well, you're
it's
looking
the
at,
making sure I don't bump into someone. Like it's the being aware of my surroundings.
yeah. I mean, the like speaking ecologically, the eyesight is a constraint,
Yeah.
right? And the way I look at constraints is the constraints either encourage other affordances, i.e., hearing, which I don't have either, um, or like something else, some other behavior, which actually I guess we could talk about that afterwards because I've always because obviously I've grown up half deaf, I'm always looking around the room to see if someone's trying to grab my attention that I've just missed or haven't heard. So I'm looking around more, so I notice more, I pay attention more to things. And with my eyesight now being gone, again, I pay even more attention to things because
Mm.
well, it's not I pay more attention, it's I'm paying attention more to different things. Again, because I'm specializing my skill, my ability to focus on things. So instead of like now, this is gonna I'm trying to articulate my experience of walking into a room. So I don't normally do this. But when I walk into a room previously, the first thing I would do is, okay, where can I sit or position myself so I can hear most of what's going on? And where can I position myself so that no one is going to try and approach me? I'm looking at the affordances of others, try and approach me on my deaf side so I don't miss it. So I'm looking for the position that I would be in the room, and then I'm looking at where the speakers are because I don't want the speaker going in my good ears and I can't hear a thing. I'm then looking at where the noisiest groups are, the loudest people are, and essentially anything that generates noise or volume. And
Mm.
I'm working out where to position myself or where to try and find places that I can communicate in. Then from the visual side, still relating to my hearing, I want to make sure that I'm positioning myself so there isn't a light behind the people that are going to be talking to me because then shadow
Mm.
over their face and I can't lip read. So I'm still looking at the lights, but I'm not looking at all of the lights. Now with my eye, I'm looking at the intensity of the light. So I'm looking at specifying information. I'm now not looking at just where the light is in relation to the person that's going to be talking to me. I'm looking at the intensity of the light because if it's too bright, my right eye is going to hurt because it can't. My iris doesn't get smaller, so it's just like painful. I've got a headache always, all the time, and I don't really want to exaggerate it because that really hurts. So I'm looking at the intensity of the light, but also any flickering because flickering again
Oh yeah.
that makes it hurt.
Yeah.
And any changes of light. So I avoid doors and windows because if something like if a vehicle goes past the window and it again changes from dark to light, that hurts. If the door is constantly being open and closed again, that hurts. So I'm I'm looking at where I wouldn't want to sit because, like, specifying information, looking at that, and looking at the constraints of my organism, uh, to position myself in the best place for me to be effective in communication and the rest of it. Um, but when I think about the situations that I'm in now, because it's shared, it's known in the group that I'm in, they also adjust where they are. So I don't have to do as much work,
Mm.
which is really nice.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I'm looking at everything that I did before. And that may sound a lot to other people, but I've done that like for 4 years now, and I've done most of that for 28 years because of my hearing. Uh, but now I'm finding myself not needing to. And the reason I want to say this is on Friday, I went to the pub and I sat with people to the right of me. And yesterday, I sat with people to the right of me. Now, that doesn't sound astounding at all, but I can't hear or see them.
Yeah.
So I have essentially become confident enough. I know this sounds weird, confident enough to have someone sitting on my essentially useless side. um, and I'm confident that if they wanted my attention, they would grab my attention,
Mm.
which I think that's the feeling that I like to create for others when I'm coaching.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like I'm thinking about all these things, but because of the situation, partly because of like I've expressed my struggles, limitations, constraints, they recognize that and then they assist with that. What that looks like is them tapping me on my shoulder or them waving their hand in front of my face for my left eye to see. That's part of deaf culture. It's not rude. If you see people like waving into people's faces, that's normal. Um,
That's so cool.
yeah. Is there anything that you because I know I can imagine there's things that you might relate to or might
Oh
see and
yeah,
go,
all
oh,
of them, very much so. It's quite interesting because I'm still kind of adjusting to, because for me it's slightly different. I'm obviously one side blind, one side deaf.
mm,
It's funny. And I still find that quite comical because we did joke about that.
yes.
Yeah, I'm definitely, especially for me, because it's not just the deafness, it's the tinnitus and the I've got to
Mhm.
be ready to sit down very quickly because I can go from being completely fine to being on the floor if I'm not careful. Um, but most of the time I have enough awareness of like, okay, cool, I'm getting very, very I can feel it coming. So I'm able to adjust. So that when I look into a room, I'm like, okay, cool. Where is the easiest place where it's quietest? Where is the place that I can go where it is where I can get out quickly if it becomes overwhelming? Where am I able to go where I can hear the people that I need to be able to hear? It's very similar to what you were saying. And also there's that bit on top of I need to be able to stay sat down and get the closest distance for whatever I may need to get. So if I'm solo, then I need to be as close as possible to the things that I need to get to, or have tools like, for example, an online ordering system in on like I prefer using an online ordering system because then I don't have to get up. And if I get up and then suddenly there's a loud noise or there is a change in there's lots of different triggers which just basically can cause me to become very dizzy, which means I can't do anything. Once that happens, I am highly restricted on what I can do. Um, which is great. But also it allows me to kind of I don't know. I'm quite intrigued on the positive sides of that because I can't find any. But it is very new. So it's only been within the last year or so. Like, where is
Interesting that you said positives.
well, benefits. There's no positives, it sucks.
Well, yeah, being disabled sucks.
Yeah.
So I don't the way I see it, like the example with the sleeping on my good ear. Like, I describe that as a positive because
Mm,
that's the way that I choose to interpret that.
mm. Oh
But
yeah, I equally
yeah,
yes. When my other half is snoring, I am very happy to just turn around the other way, and I don't have to.
but what you might have noticed, I don't know, this is from my experience, is I like when I'm sleeping, I fidget. I know that. But when I'm trying to go to sleep, if I'm laying on the same side for however long, obviously the pillow gets hot. And if I then turn over or move, I've now gone from quiet to loud noise to, oh my God, I'm awake
Yes.
now. So I have to stay on that side, which means the pillow gets hot and that gets uncomfortable and that makes it harder to sleep sometimes. So even though it is an advantage, it isn't actually an advantage if I look at it that way, but I just choose not to.
Mm, yeah. I think for me, I often just don't look at it. It's just like it feels very. I wouldn't even call it negative. I think if I think about it, it turns negative because it's frustrating and a bit annoying sometimes and it sucks. But otherwise, it's just, yeah, that's what's kind of what happens. It's a very neutral, like I have a very neutral view of it until I think about it a lot.
Yeah, see, when I'm reflecting on my disabilities, I don't see the negatives any more than I see the positives.
Mm,
Like it is just me. Like there are
yeah,
abilities, there are capabilities I have and capabilities I don't have. Let's work it out. Like it's the same as being short. Like I am short, so I can't reach things up high, so I need to get on a step ladder. Or I am tall enough to reach this. I don't need a step ladder. Like that is just an attribute of me. And it's the same with my hearing. I either can or can't hear. I either can or can't see. Um, and I see all of them as the same. I see my height the same as my eyesight, the same as my hearing, the same as my taste. All of it is just me. So when I was having a discussion with one of the people that I coach, they're profoundly deaf. There was football going on the other side of the trampoline. We're trampolining, and other people were getting distracted. Now, in that very specific, again, when we're talking about ecological psychology and
we are
the
talking about,
measures
yeah,
fractals, if you look at measures and fractals in that specific situation, looking at the outcome, i.e., they want to try and focus on themselves, well, they have the advantage because they can't hear the
that's
football that's
very
going on the other
true.
side. You look at any other measure at any other point throughout that session, it's a pretty big disadvantage because they don't know what's going on. Well, they do, but they need to pay attention far more than others.
That
If
is quite
again,
interesting.
if
Yeah.
again you compare the measures, so
Yeah, because when I don't really want to interact with other people and I want to just be able to focus, that is easier. I can just put some music on and turn it up just a tiny bit, and I can't hear anything else. I just hear the music and what I'm doing. So yeah, no, yeah, in that very tiny fractal, in a
mm,
tiny measurement, yay, it's great.
I wouldn't say tiny
Well, small. Well, no, because it's a fractal, isn't it? So there's no
size.
qualifier needed. It's just
Yeah, the size comes with comparison,
mm,
and that is why when we were talking about the good, the bad, the effective, the ineffective, like a lot of those words come with comparison, and the measure will be dependent on who you're comparing yourself to. And that
mm,
most people will compare themselves to different individuals, to different metrics, etc., etc. Like one of the conversations I was having with one of the people at Trampoline the other day was what a good flip looks like. Because in traditional trampoline, a good flip has objective measures for scoring and judging. In freestyle trampoline, a good flip, again, has an aesthetic look, but there's different ways to do it. And then the person that I was talking to on Friday at Eastbourne Tramp, their good flip had nothing to do with either of those. So, to put it simply, in traditional, you want to have straight lines, pointed toes, and it look under control and it being floaty, right? In freestyle, they want it to look still under control, but extravagant, sensationalized. So maybe
Mm.
in some different movement, different shape, odd skill, um, maybe going from a big open shape to a small shape to a big open shape. So you get a change in speed. What this boy was saying, Eastbourne Trampoline, a good flip is one that goes fast, close to the trampoline, so your head like just skims the trampoline, you go from one end to the other, which is quite
Interesting.
literally the opposite of what traditional trampoline wants.
Yeah.
Um, and isn't really what you want in freestyle either, because you want to do something after it.
Mm.
But but they didn't have the same metrics that I have when it comes to measuring what a good flip is. So all of the comparisons, all of the oh, that was good and that was bad. It's relative on individual comparison, which is why I
Mm.
love what we're doing at Eastbourne Trampoline, because some of the comments that come out, I'm like, yes, exactly my point.
Oh, so cool. It is so cool.
But but yeah, so when it comes to the comparisons, I'm curious how you approach comparisons in your language.
Within any context, within my own context, within other contexts, or just in general.
Just in general, obviously you've said disabled, and we've spoken about disability. Disability is inherently a comparative word
It is, yeah.
because someone is
It,
disabled from X
it's
scenario.
so interesting because I think I've said this before. Like, from I never really see my sight as a disability. Like,
Hmm.
and until it's visible, if that makes sense, until something gets in the
Ironic.
way. Yeah, exactly. But even then, I do just, yep, that's just me. Yeah, I'm just gonna bump into things today. Do you know what? I'm just gonna bump into things because that's just what I do. But often that's what it becomes. It's just funny. Whereas I have a very different relationship with the hearing. Most of the time, I just can't hear. It's like that's fine. But the other pieces, the I think it's because for me, the sight is continuous, the hearing is basically continuous. But the vertigo, the dizzy spells are not continuous. And then they're harder to kind of there is that comparison from being able to do things easily and then all of a sudden having to just stay sat down and not move for a bit or move very slightly. And so that like the relationship there, the comparison there is greater because the constraints are higher. Well, the constraints I have are perceived higher. I perceive them as higher because they're still relatively new, because it's still an experience I'm still
I would
getting used.
say there are still more constraints. Like I
Mm.
wouldn't say higher or lower. I would say, I mean, yeah, you could say higher. I would say
It's
more.
more constrained. Yeah,
Yeah,
I am more highly constrained.
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I am more highly constrained when I have a dizzy spell than I ever have been from even just losing my hearing. And obviously, I've never had my sight, so I don't know. I don't have anything to compare to. And I think it's really like that comparing piece when I talk to clients is a similar thing. It's like I'm comparing this to this because I should be like this, but I'm actually like this.
Yeah, should.
Yeah,
Don't
that's
know.
their language is like I should behave like this. I should be able to do this. And I think there is a I'm not even sure whether for me in reflection of like my, the dizzy spells, it's not even a should, it's just oh, this is a little bit. It's just frustrating. I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the way that I see like when I do, I guess it's kind of like stubbing your toe. And this is going to sound really odd, but when you stub your toe, you're like, that really hurt. I'm not going to put weight on that for however long. Or when you hurt yourself, like, okay, I've hurt myself. I can't do X, Y, Z thing because I'm now limited. It's like, yeah, it's annoying, but it's like I can't do anything about it.
Yes.
It happened, or it's
That's kind of
happening.
where I'm getting to with the kind of dizzy spells. I'm almost there. It's still a little bit frustrating, and I would very much like to just things were. So there is that comparison there in that way.
Mm.
Um,
Because my headache that I get with my eye, obviously it goes up and goes down depending on what it is that I'm doing. Like I can tell that probably after this call, my eye is going to start hurting because the sun is coming out and it's starting to reflect off the buildings outside. I can't do anything about that. Like I could close the blind, but then I wouldn't be able to see anything. Like,
yeah.
or I turn the light on and then it's just more of a hassle. I'd much rather have like 10, 15 minutes of like a bigger throb in my head than
Mm,
all of the rest of it. Um, and I've accepted that. Like I know that that's going to be a thing,
mm.
but I don't. For me, I don't look at it and go, oh, okay, this is worse than it was before. It's not a reflection that I really engage in. I
When I
could, I just choose not to.
That's interesting because as I'm kind of reflecting on it, I'm often not actually reflecting on my disability. Like I'm not when I'm talking about it, it's not a reflective practice.
Mm,
It's an analysis.
yeah.
It's a this is a thing versus a reflection. Whereas what
Yeah.
I'm doing right now is more reflective in than I'm talking about the disability. So it's often more analysis and assessment versus reflection. So
Mm,
that's an interesting relationship. Like
yeah.
because on a day to day, I don't think like it's oh cool, I'm dizzy now. Let's sit down. It's just like dog move, I will fall on you. Dog move, sofa there. I need to be there quickly. Excuse me, I don't want to fall on any of you. Get out of the bloody way.
Yep.
That's literally. It's just cool. This is happening. I'm gonna go sit down now. I can't do anything. Sometimes I'm a bit frustrated, but that's usually because I'm having a bad day, and that's fine because I can be annoyed and frustrated because I don't have to be happy all the time. It's okay to be fed up with it, and it's okay to just mood shifts and stuff. And so, but yeah, it was really interesting.
I'm curious what you mean by mood shifts because I don't like again a mood. Hey, happy, sad. It's a label, and the label is categorized on a
Yeah,
fractal of time.
I was actually thinking that. I was like, oh, that's a mood shift. Well, a mood is continuous. That like a feeling. It's just it's not a I'm this and then I'm this and then I'm this and then I'm this. It is just
Mm.
I'm annoyed now.
Well, see that's why I think I don't like when people say, "Oh, when do you get angry?" or how do you get angry?" or "When do you get annoyed?" or they say, "Oh, you don't seem to get frustrated," or blah blah blah, or "You have a lot of patience," etc. I'm like, no, I still get frustrated. I still get angry. Sometimes it's more obvious visually because of my behavior, but when I do feel something starting to shift in a direction that I don't think is going to be useful, good, nice, effective, whatever, then I don't carry on doing that thing.
Mm,
I, working with send individuals obviously is or can be harder, again, depending on the individual, than working with non-send individuals. But that's if you're not aware of the situation. If you're paying attention to affordances and constraints of both individuals, i.e., yourself and them, plus anyone else that's in the situation and in the environment, of course, um, then it's no harder than working with any other person. You're doing the exact same thing. You are coordinating with other people in the world. Whether you're good at that or not requires an assessment of skill development, and skill development obviously takes time.
no, instant, isn't it?
Ugh. Well, it's when I talk to some coaches and they say, "Oh, they're so hard to coach." No,
Mm,
you're a bad coach.
yeah.
If someone is hard to coach, you're a bad coach. That's the way I look at it. I know it sounds really harsh and direct, but if someone is hard to coach, you're a bad coach. Sorry, it's just I don't want to say it's just the way it is, but I am yet to find a person that I can't, in inverted commas there, coach. Like there are people that I would coach differently to others. As an example, there were a couple of people in the last session that I wasn't giving them instructions or telling them what to do. I wasn't even next to their trampoline, but I would class coaching them because I've set up the environment, but two, they were doing challenges that I had suggested via a different medium, i.e., words on paper. So I was still giving them constraints in the environment to explore without physically doing it. I wasn't physically
Mm,
next to the trampoline saying, "Can you land on your bum and get back to your feet?" But I gave them a trampoline and they read the challenge card and then they tried to do it with the mat. I'm still observing, and if I felt like they required some guidance, I would go over there. To me, I'm still coaching them.
mm.
That's the way I see it. But other people would say, no, that's not coaching. And that to me is where the label of coach, the label of good, the label of whatever, and the comparisons that we tend to make when we're talking about things get in the way of what actually happens, what like behaviors actually are.
Mm.
Similar with success, like a lot of people that are somewhat disabled, however you want to define disabled in whatever context and measure that you're using, need to have their own understanding of what success looks like.
Yeah,
And it will look different to everyone. Everyone's success is different,
yeah,
which I think relates quite nicely with the conversation that we had last week after, or maybe it was on the call about successful like sports teams or clubs or businesses. Like what is success for the business, for the club, for the team, etc.
yes,
So I can see you you internet searching. So
yes.
I'm curious where you started thinking.
Successful businesses, like for me, in terms of how I define it for my work, is when your business is doing what you want it to do. Like you're earning, and whether which is very open,
Mm.
I know. But for me, my successful business is I'm earning enough money and I'm enjoying everything that I do. Like it challenges me, it keeps me going, there is variability in it, and I have good conversations with good people. Like that to me is a successful business. There is the financial element because a business is only a business when it earns money. Otherwise, it's not a business.
How
It's a
much?
hobby. Enough, however you define that.
Okay.
That's not define that isn't definable like in general. You
So
can't define that generalized in a generalized way. You create your own definition based on what you need. So for me, it's enough to be able to live the life I want to live. It's what I need to earn to be able to pay my bills, to be able to have money left over, and to not worry about it. That to me is a successful business.
so a question then for you.
Hmm.
Eastbourne Trampoline, would you
Yeah.
class that as a business?
Would I class it as a business for me?
No, would you class as generally as a business, would you class Eastbourne Trampoline as a business? It's a not-for-profit organization.
Hmm. No, I probably wouldn't class it as a business, not in the traditional sense. It would be more of a charity
Okay.
kind of thing. That's how I would define it.
Right. Okay. The reason I ask is obviously it's a sports club, and sports clubs people pay to be part of said sports club. So in theory, the club is earning money.
Hmm.
Well, it is earning money. It's not in theory. they would be earning money, whether that is to pay for facilities, pay for equipment, just like you would in a normal business. You're going to have like subscription fees and apps, etc., that you'll pay for, or your internet bill sort of thing to make sure that the business runs. Well, sports clubs are not for profit, but still earn money to function.
Yes, I suppose it would be a business.
And this is where I'm sort of interested to get your thoughts because as an individual, I could support a not-for-profit business, so the not-for-profit business doesn't need to earn money. Obviously, that's
Yeah.
like grants, etc., or the sponsors or investors or whatever. So the Eastbourne Trampoline could be a business that earns nothing because they can be donated money.
But
So
that,
how,
like, I don't see that as different.
but how would that then be a successful or not successful business, financially speaking, anyway?
That depends on whether financial success matters. Like, if it's running
Hmm.
and the business is going
Hmm.
and it works at a basic level,
Yep.
then it's successful. Like, if we want to like across the board, a business is successful is when they don't have is when they have enough to keep the business going,
Or
as long as they where they're comfortable. Like there isn't the thing is there isn't really, I mean, I can set some parameters, but the parameters are very rarely set by the business owner. Also, this isn't my area of expertise in this specific, a physical business is not my skill set. Like I
but
don't
what's the
have the
difference between a physical business and an online business when it comes to finances?
it's slightly more complicated.
How? Money goes
Um
in, money goes out.
well yeah, that's true. As long as there's enough money goes in and the money going in matches the money going out. That like to boil it down to really overly simplified terms, which is very difficult and I don't like it. But that is it. It's like if the money comes in, however it comes in, matches or is less than the money going out, then it's a business. Like
Agreed.
and it's successful.
And that to me, because when you were talking about business success, like financially, to me that's sustainability.
Mm,
Like, can it sustain itself?
yes.
Like, if the answer to that question is yes, then I think it's a sustainable business.
Yeah.
Then I think it's a successful business. So the way that I would describe Eastbourne Trampoline, if I want Eastbourne Trampoline to be successful, or if I want Danny Hatcher on YouTube to be successful, or if I want whatever business to be successful, is it sustainable? Like
Mm,
that's all I would want. Like, is it
mm.
sustainable? What sustainable means to the business was obviously shift and
Yeah.
change. Um, and and so I think for me at least, it gets rid of a lot of the or ifs and buts and measures and how long and what about that and etc. etc. Well, is it sustainable? Well, it's
Mm,
only sustainable for so long because I don't have money for this thing, or I think I will burn out by that time. Well, then it's not sustainable. Now you have, like, if someone can see a point at which it will not be sustainable, then it's not. Then you have a problem.
yeah.
That's the way that I see it, and that's a constant process of measuring. And
Mm,
when I map this along to ecological dynamics, I see running a business as the same as running a person because it's essentially a system, organizing system, self-organizing system, which means that running a business is skill development. It's developing skills, etc., bifurcations, affordances, constraints, etc., because the system, business, is self-organizing. The clients, the workers, the staff, the all the stuff that gets involved into it, they are also autonomous systems that are self-organizing, which comes together into whatever it will be, bigger or smaller in the fractal measurement that you're picking. So sort of like to bring it back then to success, when I think about a successful sports club, it's it's a question of sustainability rather than performance, rather than finances, rather than a lot of the measurable metrics. And I wonder, because I don't know, if there are any way of measuring sustainability metrics apart from looking into the future at potential problems where it would collapse, either via financial collapse or staffing collapse or burnout for whatever reason or some similar situation. Because if not, then a business can't be successful via traditional metrics because it would be the same as any person. How is a person successful? Well, it depends on the measure, blah, 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 blah.
Mm.
How do you know if an Olympic gold medalist was successful? Well, they got a gold medal. Yeah, but they were successful then. Will they get it next time? Business. Oh, we were successful this month. Will we get it next time? Well, I don't know. So it wasn't a trick question, but it was an open question. So to me, I see a business the same as I see a person.
Mm.
And when people say, "Oh, are you successful?" I'm like, I don't think I can answer that.
Yeah, yeah. Picking a it's a. I think that's where my struggle was like trying to pick a measurement. It was like, which one do you want me to measure it by? Like,
But that's
trying.
exactly what I see most people do.
Mm,
And that's why it's interesting because obviously when we're talking about the flip, what's a good flip, what's a bad flip, comparison.
mm.
Well, success,
Oh yeah.
yeah. When you think about success, oh, are you successful? Well, it's a comparison. It's a comparison metric. And the more I think about the language that the majority of individuals use in nouns, not verbs, they're comparative words.
Mm,
And if you use comparative words, there will always be a winner and a loser at the end of the
mm.
day. So I avoid the success metric. I share successful stories because successful stories, again, is trying to verb the noun. This wasn't a success story. It is a successful story because I see development. I see development
Mm.
in these people, or I see development in this club, or I see development in this business. To me, that's a successful story or ongoing story rather than we've had success.
Yeah, yeah. I agree.
Does that reframe anything?
Yeah, yeah. It makes sense why I struggled because trying to choose a thing which is not helpful.
It's not helpful, but it's what
Yeah.
most people do.
Mm.
It's traditional thinking.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's wrong. I mean, I do it sometimes, but I'm very quick to adjust the way that I'm addressing something because I recognize it, and that's part of reflection. Everyone makes mistakes, but as soon as you recognize that, oh, actually, maybe this might be a mistake, you now know you're reflecting on something and you can critically analyze it. If you're not reflecting and critically analyzing something, you're less likely to recognize that it might be a mistake.
Mm.
So I guess here's the question for you. Your businesses, would you see them as successful stories at the moment?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
curious why.
Um, because they are like they feel it. Like they just feel successful. They feel like successful stories. They're moving forward. They're sustainable. Like they are currently sustainable. They are continuing to develop. They're changing, they're adapting, they're moving, they're growing, yeah.
So do you think you would need help?
I'm sure. Depends.
That's my point. Because if you are a successful business, why would you need help? Because most people, when I look at the marketing, oh, are you struggling?
Yeah.
Are you struggling? Are you having problems? Well, are you a successful business? Yes, then you don't have problems. Well, that's not right.
No, because there are still problems.
Exactly. So why do people market to businesses that are struggling or having problems if they're successful?
Wasn't successful, is it? Necessarily.
But
I
like
suppose
like
for me, for me, having help is relating to the sustainability. It's to see the things that I can't see. It's to have to see the things I cannot currently see. They have a different relationship to the business than I do, and so they can come in. They have different affordances that I may not perceive.
attuned to different specifying
Yeah.
information, yeah.
And so they're like, oh yeah, have you thought about this and this thing? Have you considered that this thing here, like in 6 months, this won't work due to this thing because of the experiences that I've had? Have you seen this? Have you seen that? Like, be aware of this. Like that's kind of where the help would come.
But that for me is a to me that would be marketed differently to the way most people market at the moment.
Yeah.
We market based on nouns rather than coaching.
Mm.
The reason I sort of like shifted this way, partly because of the emergent topic in the conversation, but also because obviously you're coaching and I'm coaching, but we're coaching in different contexts. And the definition of effective coaching that I work through, I use, which you're familiar with. Do you remember it?
No. Yes, but no.
Consistent application of integrated professional, interpersonal, and intrapersonal knowledge to improve. It says athletes, but I think we could put people in there.
Yeah.
Competence, confidence, connection, and character in specific coaching contexts. So, competence, confidence, connection, and character, those four C's are what I
Mm.
try and focus on when I'm looking at a successful business or the success stories that I'm looking at. I think I shared a LinkedIn post recently about this actually. Connection, character, confidence, competence, those four things are the metrics that I look for.
Mm.
And the only one there that you could even sort of say is related to medals is competence.
Mm.
But competence could be just someone walking back and forth on a trampoline without falling over.
Yeah.
You're not
That's.
going to get a medal for that.
Mm.
So I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, how would you address competence, confidence, connection, and character in business? As in like coaching businesses, if that makes sense.
A lot of what I do is related to that confidence
Mm.
of because the business world is quite um well, it's traditional, not right or wrong, but it is very much I will fix this because you are broken, this doesn't work. And the constant comparison reduces confidence. And so a lot of what I do is around that confidence. It's about raising that confidence through I suppose they all kind of relate to each other because if you feel more competent at what you're doing, you gain confidence. And so it's about getting people just to flip. Well, in this
Can do.
unique context, it can, but it doesn't necessarily. But it's around raising that. It's helping. I'm just thinking of the clients I have around okay, here is you want to do this thing, you want to raise your competence in that specific context by raise specific coaching contexts,
Connection.
making making all the connections. Yeah. And so raising the competency in getting a job done or making better lists. But then when they make those better lists, they recognize that these lists aren't actually helping them and are doing this, 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 and this. And then they're like, oh, cool. As I assess this, I see this. Oh, that means I don't actually need to make these lists. They feel more confident, they raise competency in actually getting the things they want to get done. And it just all kind of, so yes,
Nice, nice. Anything else you want to add?
that's good.
All right. Well, I think we'll call it there for today. So, thanks everyone for listening. Talk to you next week.